The film begins with two friends named Johnny and Frankie, who meet again to resume their work as hitmen. On the way, Johnny suddenly tells Frankie that today is his last day of work because he is retiring from being a hitman starting tomorrow. Hearing this, Frankie is curious and asks what Johnny will do after he retires. At that time, Johnny says he will start a catfish farming business. Instead of supporting him, Frankie laughs because he doesn't think Johnny can run a catfish farm. As a caring friend, Frankie tries to advise Johnny not to retire because his sister, Mercy, still needs money for college. Even though Frankie's advice is true, Johnny gets angry and hits Frankie for bringing up his sister. Mercy doesn't know about Johnny's job, and Johnny warns Frankie not to talk about her or get close to her because he doesn't want her to get hurt because of his work. After Frankie understands Johnny's orders, he tells Johnny that they have a job to kill a con artist named Jonathan. The plan is to disguise themselves as census officers to trick the guards. But since Johnny doesn't like small talk, he immediately attacks and finishes off the guards. After getting rid of all the guards in the house, Johnny and Frankie went to the main room. There, they found a man sleeping after spending time with his girlfriend. Thinking this man was Jonathan, Johnny and Frankie attacked him. Even though the man said he wasn't Jonathan but Lookmund, Johnny kept hitting him. Then Johnny started to doubt because the man's face didn't match the photo they had. So he went upstairs to find a photo of Lookmund when he was younger. Upstairs, Johnny found Lookmund's girlfriend, Anita, already awake. Anita was handcuffed by Lookmund, so she asked Johnny to get the key from a glass on the table. After freeing Anita, Johnny kept searching while talking to her. Suddenly, Anita tried to attack Johnny with a weapon from a drawer. But Johnny realized it and quickly shot Anita, stopping her from doing anything bad. At that time, Johnny didn't just shoot Anita to protect himself. He discovered that Anita was actually Jonathan. Johnny figured this out after finding estrogen medicine, which is often used by transgender people. Anita, who had undergone transgender surgery, was really Jonathan, hiding his identity to avoid being caught. After killing Anita, Johnny called his team to clean up the mess and free the innocent Lookmund. But Lookmund, angry about his transgender lover being killed, grabbed Frankie's weapon and threatened to kill him. There, Johnny acted fast to protect his friend, and he didn't hesitate to kill Lookmund, even though he wasn't part of their mission that day. After the mission was completed, Johnny suddenly got a call from his sister, Mercy. She called to wish him a happy birthday because it was Johnny's birthday that day. Mercy had prepared a special gift for Johnny and asked him to meet her somewhere to give it to him. Not long after, Frankie came back after cleaning himself from the bloodstains. But he was wearing Lookmund's clothes, which upset Johnny. The shirt had Lookmund's son's name on it, and the tumbler Johnny was holding also belonged to Lookmund and had a unique design. This would make it easy for the police to find out who committed the murder. Hearing this, Frankie fell silent. Frankie then told Johnny to stop worrying because he was going to burn Lookmund's clothes in the trash can. Since their mission was complete, they went back to Oma Abhang, a cafe with a secret place used as a base for hitmen. To hide their identities, Johnny and Frankie had to pretend to order food at the cafe. Coincidentally, the person serving them was Sarah, Johnny's ex-girlfriend who he had broken up with 5 years ago. But then, Sarah remembered how Johnny treated her before, making her reluctant to serve them. But Johnny and Frankie needed her to give a code to Damar, the boss of the hitmen at Oma Abhang, so Sarah had to serve them. While waiting for the code to reach Damar, Johnny, who felt guilty for how he had treated Sarah, took the chance to apologize. There, Johnny apologized again, something he had done several times. But because his previous mistake was serious, which was leaving Sarah to keep her safe from his dangerous job, she didn't easily accept his apology and walked away from him. After waiting for a long time, Johnny and Frankie finally met Damar. Without wasting any time, Johnny told Damar that he wanted to retire. Hearing that, Damar was shocked, especially when Frankie said he also wanted to retire because he couldn't work alone. At first, Damar was disappointed because his best team wanted to quit. However, he agreed on the condition that Johnny and Frankie had to complete 3 final tasks that day perfectly. With no other choice, Johnny and Frankie agreed. They said goodbye and went back to the cafe to continue their lunch. Just as they started eating their fried noodles, another one of Damar's subordinates, Manuel, approached them. At that time, Manuel came over just to show off because he was now the top assassin in Oma Abhang. There, he also insulted Johnny, which made Frankie angry. But Johnny, not wanting any trouble in the cafe, especially since it wouldn't make him any money, held Frankie back and congratulated Manuel instead, making Manuel even more arrogant. After finishing lunch, Johnny and Frankie went to the first location. On their way, Frankie received a call from a woman, who turned out to be Mercy, Johnny's sister. Turns out, Mercy and Frankie had been secretly seeing each other, afraid Johnny would find out. But that day, Mercy wanted to tell Johnny because she wanted to know if Frankie was serious about her. At first, Frankie refused, scared that Johnny would be very angry. But Mercy didn't accept his refusal and decided she would tell Johnny no matter what. After the call ended, Johnny suddenly had a stomachache and had to stop at a public toilet. Johnny quickly realized that his stomachache was likely caused by Sarah, who had put something in his food earlier. When he called Sarah to ask for an explanation, she got angry and told Johnny to apologize to her. Annoyed and still in pain, Johnny told Frankie that Sarah was behind his stomach ache. But instead of speaking badly about Sarah, Johnny admitted that he still loved her. He said Sarah was a tough and smart woman, unlike anyone else he had ever met. One example of her toughness was raising her son, Farrell, on her own. When Johnny left Sarah, he thought their baby had been lost, but Sarah actually gave birth to the child alone and never told Johnny. It's unclear if Farrell is Johnny's son, but Johnny loves Farrell a lot and often visits his school to watch over him from a distance. As Johnny was talking about Sarah and Farrell, his stomach hurt again, and he had to rush to the toilet. After a while, someone knocked on the door. It was Farrell, who had been told by his teacher that the toilet was out of tissue. At that time, Farrell handed Johnny a roll of tissue. Once Johnny and Frankie finished dealing with Johnny's stomachache, they went to their first target location, a gamer named Cecilo. Turns out, Cecilo was targeted because he was a toxic player, and his opponents hired hitmen because they didn't want to see him play games anymore. Even though the reason seemed silly, Johnny and Frankie still entered the house to find Cecilo. But when they found him, they discovered Cecilo was just a young boy. At first, Johnny couldn't believe their target was a child. But when he checked the file given by Damar, it confirmed that Cecilo was indeed the boy they had to kill. Johnny and Frankie were confused about whether they should kill the boy just for playing a game. However, because they were professional hitmen, they felt they had no choice and executed Cecilo right then and there. Unfortunately, Johnny's stomach started hurting again, and he had to rush to the toilet. Frankie decided not to do anything until Johnny came back. While waiting, Frankie and Cecilo started talking. Soon after, Cecilo shared that he was alone because his parents had died from an illness, and his older brother had been shot by a hitman 7 years ago. Cecilo explained that his brother was killed in front of a mosque while going to pray early in the morning. Frankie suddenly admitted that he was the hitman who had shot Cecilo's brother. He said Cecilo's brother was a terrorist and had to be killed to pay for his crimes. Hearing this, Cecilo was shocked and hysterical. Then, he grabbed Frankie's weapon from the table, planning to take revenge. Luckily, Johnny managed to calm Cecilo down, saying that killing Frankie wouldn't change anything and would only get Cecilo in trouble with the police and other hitmen. Realizing Johnny was right, Cecilo, who was scared for his future, chose to shoot the ceiling instead. Johnny then offered a solution to make up for Frankie's actions. He and Frankie would fake Cecilo's death. If Cecilo wanted to stay safe, he would need to leave the city and go into hiding. Before continuing to their second mission, Johnny and Frankie went to an alternative medicine clinic to treat Johnny's stomachache. After Johnny took the medicine, Frankie decided to get acupressure to feel refreshed. While Frankie was getting acupressure, Johnny accidentally saw a message from Mercy on Frankie's phone and realized that Frankie was in a relationship with Mercy. At that time, Johnny wanted to be angry because Frankie had been secretly dating Mercy, which could put her in danger due to their job. However, Johnny decided to hold back his anger and talk to Frankie about it after they finished their work. Now, their second target was Jennings, the leader of a social foundation involved in money laundering. Disguised as journalists to gain easy access, Johnny and Frankie demanded the money Jennings had hidden. At first, she tried to talk casually, but when Johnny and Frankie pointed their weapons at her, she explained that she was using the money for operational costs and assured them she never used the donated money for useless things. Feeling that the situation was getting tense, Jennings excused herself to get a drink. But since the water dispenser hadn't been set up properly, she tried to lift the heavy water bottle herself, causing it to spill. Unfortunately, the spilled water touched a nearby cable with exposed wires, and Janice was electrocuted and died instantly. After making sure she was dead, Johnny and Frankie moved on to their last mission. Before that, Johnny couldn't hold back his anger anymore and took Frankie aside to confront him. He started beating Frankie, demanding to know why he was dating Mercy. There, Johnny reminded Frankie that they had agreed not to get involved with their families to keep them safe from their dangerous job. Later, Johnny met Mercy. The first thing she asked about was Frankie. Johnny told his sister that he knew everything about their relationship. To protect her, Johnny had killed Frankie. Upon hearing that, Mercy cried and scolded Johnny for killing her boyfriend. Even though Johnny's reason was to protect her, Mercy couldn't accept it, especially knowing all the sacrifices Frankie had made for her, including using all his savings to help Johnny start the catfish farm he dreamed of. When Johnny realized that the birthday gift was from Frankie, his heart softened. Johnny gave Mercy his car keys so she could open the trunk where Johnny had hidden the unconscious Frankie. Seeing his genuine love for Mercy, Johnny finally agreed to their relationship. However, he warned that if Frankie ever hurt Mercy, he would never forgive him. A little while after approving their relationship, Johnny started feeling itchy all over his body. Worried, Mercy took Johnny to the hospital. The doctor discovered that Johnny was allergic to the diarrhea medicine he had taken at the alternative clinic. While Mercy went to get the medicine, Frankie told Johnny that their third target was also in the hospital. Now, their third target was Bruno, a criminal involved in theft, extortion, murder, and even rape. Turns out, Bruno had been arrested by the police and was at the hospital for a health check. If the doctor declared Bruno healthy, the police would take him to the back building to be executed. Johnny and Frankie's task was to retrieve an item that Bruno had hidden to give to Damar. At that moment, they only had 10 minutes before Bruno was executed. Disguised as nurses, Johnny and Frankie met Bruno. There, Bruno handed over the item Damar wanted, but then revealed that he had hired a hitman to kill him before the execution. He wanted to show that people like Johnny, Frankie, and other killers couldn't be controlled. Offended by this, Johnny decided not to kill Bruno and left him to face his execution. After completing 3 missions, Johnny, Frankie, and Mercy went to Oma Abhang. At that time, Johnny told Mercy to wait in the car because only he and Frankie had business inside. Johnny planned to meet Sarah first, but since she had gone home early, he left Frankie in the living room to call her. A few moments later, a waiter told Frankie to see Damar. Shortly after, Damar revealed that he knew Johnny and Frankie had lied about killing all 3 targets. Turns out, Cecilia was still alive, and Damar had to send others to finish the job. Without giving Frankie a chance to explain, Damar gave him a choice which to kill Johnny or Mercy would be killed. At the same time, Johnny received a video from Manuel. It showed that Damar and Manuel had planned this kidnapping to punish Johnny for not completing his last assignment properly. Worried about Mercy, Johnny quickly told Frankie they needed to go to the location Manuel mentioned. As Johnny expressed his anger to Frankie, Frankie revealed that not only Mercy was in danger, but also Sarah and Farrell. At that moment, they had become targets in a deadly competition among assassins. Knowing Manuel's plan, Johnny decides to go to Sarah's place. When he gets there, he finds several hitmen ready to kill Sarah for the reward Damar promised. Soon after, a fierce fight breaks out, but Johnny and Frankie work well together and manage to kill all the hitmen. They quickly check on Sarah and Farrell to make sure they are safe. After making sure Sarah and Farrell are okay, Johnny plans to find a safe hiding place. But then, Manuel calls and tells Johnny to kill Frankie if he wants Mercy to survive. Realizing that Manuel is trying to turn them against each other, Johnny hangs up the phone only to find Frankie pointing a gun at him from behind. Shortly after, Frankie takes Johnny to Damar and Manuel. Everyone thinks Johnny is dead, but it turns out Johnny and Frankie have been working together. Then, they start attacking, and a fierce fight lasts for a long time. Both Manuel and Johnny are determined to win, but with Frankie's help, they manage to defeat Manuel just as Johnny is cornered. However, Manuel is still alive and starts chasing Johnny, who runs away. Meanwhile, Frankie confronts Damar, who points a gun at him. At that moment, Frankie can't do anything until Mercy kicks Damar's hand, making him drop the gun. Soon after, Frankie grabs it and kills Damar right then and there. After the fight, Mercy runs out to find Johnny. Just as they meet, Manuel shoots Johnny in the back, leaving him dying. Seeing that, Mercy felt furious and heartbroken. Then, she takes Johnny's gun and shoots Manuel multiple times until he is dead. Before Johnny dies, he leaves a message for Sarah. He reveals that he never completely left her and has been watching over Farrell, paying for his education and the house rent. As time goes by, Frankie and Mercy start their own business, hiring assassins. They give the bodies of their targets to Sarah, who continues Johnny's catfish farming business and uses the bodies as feed. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is a surprise stomachache can save your life in unexpected ways.